Down at the bottom, you can see the F6 for RAID AHCI and SCSI drivers. It's loading the other drivers and starting Windows. And on today's video, we're taking a look back at Windows 2000 Service Pack 4 installation. Throughout the video, I'll cover some historical facts of Windows 2000, but it's fine to watch without audio too. Pressing Enter to continue. Pressing F8 to agree with license. I'm creating a partition for the whole drive and formatting it as NTFS. Note that this is being installed on a Hyper-V virtual machine. See video description for PC and virtual machine specs. Note that it's an unmodified Windows 2000 Service Pack 4 ISO with Windows 11 as the host OS. And Windows 2000 was released about 23 years ago, February 17th, 2000. As of the publishing of this video. Feel free to skip ahead at any time. The video has chapters. The formatting process is a full format in Windows 2000 setup. Note that there is no quick format option. Notice how similar the setup is to Windows XP. Very similar. You can definitely see the resemblance, and again, the only missing feature I've noticed is the quick format option, which really saves time, although I'm sure there are other differences. Okay, we're coming up on 50% now. Keep in mind, this is on a virtual machine with Hyper-V Generation 1 on Windows 11 config version 11.0 on an NVMe SSD. I will post another video in the future exploring an alternate IDE driver later to see if we can't boost storage performance. Some facts about 2000 while we wait. The original release, February 17, 2000, build number 2195.1, Service Pack 1, July 21st, 2000, build number 2195.2160, SP2, May 16, 2001, build number 2195.2951, SP3, August 20th, 2002, build number 2195.5438, SP4, June 26, 2003, build number 2195.6717. That was the last service pack for 2000. Please leave a comment if you would like to see more Windows 2000 videos. Finally, the drive formatting process has completed, and it does some checks. Setup is copying files. Again, it's very similar to XP, but fewer files. The Windows 2000 SP4 ISO is only 386 megabytes, whereas XP Service Pack 3 is 589 megabytes. It's picking up speed again. You can see the file names as it's copying down at the bottom right, and this would take much longer from CD. Of course, it's an emulated ISO since it's a virtual machine. It's processing some INF files at the end of this, which we'll see in a second. And it's, again, really picking up speed, so it won't take long. 90%. And there we go. Going through some INF files. We'll wait and let this timer run. And again, this is on Hyper-V. So a virtual machine running on Windows 11. Okay, and there it is, the classic boot from CD option, just like XP. That black and white bar is classic Windows 2000. Windows 2000 has this wonderful startup screen, and I was always impressed by the full screen graphic with progress bar. I believe 2000 started one driver at a time, and XP started multiple drivers in parallel. So this may take a bit longer than XP to boot on similar hardware. Back into setup again with a please wait screen. And we'll be waiting not too long. Clicking next to continue. There's a little bit of information there, but nothing of substance. And we get a progress bar. So if you've got a late 90s or early 2000s PC for retro apps and games, I highly recommend trying Windows 2000 just to see what you think. You know, make a backup, try it out, and see how it runs. Most drivers from XP should be backward compatible. The OS is very light and runs incredibly fast on hardware of that era. Again, if there's interest, I may do many more videos of Windows 2000. Please submit ideas in the comments. We've got plenty of PCs to run it on. We can try it on different virtual machine platforms. Just put your ideas in the comments. So this setup kind of gets a little weird here towards the middle. Installing devices, it'll slow down and it'll flicker the screen at about 50 to 60%. It might seem frozen, but it just takes a minute, and that's how setup works in Windows 2000. And this is where, again, it seems to freeze up right about here. It's like just waiting. About 50, 60%. Shouldn't be too much longer, just another couple seconds here. It's almost there. Really takes a minute, doesn't it? Like I said, it'll seem frozen, especially on an older PC, but you just have to wait it out. So this part of setup is one of the longest parts. This video was captured at 800 by 600 and 1024 by 768. I've scaled it up to 4K for this video on YouTube, which should help with the quality. And there it is. That flickering is the video driver going in, and really gets crazy even on real hardware. If you had an old CRT monitor, it would probably go to sleep and wake back up. And the setup may actually run faster on a newer old PC than on virtualized hardware. Like if you had a later Pentium 4 or a Core 2 Duo or something of that nature, assuming that it was old enough for 2000 to work, that there weren't any weird conflicts. I've also not tried creating a USB installer, but that should be possible. And again, it seems like there's IDE performance issue in Hyper-V, and so I'll be trying a different IDE driver, which I found, which is a pretty cool thing. Someone wrote a IDE/ATA/SATA driver that claims to fix performance issues in VMs, as well as have kind of an almost universal hardware support. So also, I tried this in VMware Workstation 17, and it just doesn't work. It takes forever to boot. You have to disable GPU acceleration. And we'll definitely be trying later VMware Workstation Windows 2000 with that different IDE driver to see what happens. Now, note that there also may be sound issues in VMware Workstation on 2000 because there are with XP2 sound glitchiness. So I'm not trashing VMware. I use it a lot, but I decided to use Hyper-V for this case because it worked better. Going to click Next here to continue. Username is required, but organization is optional. Product key. Interesting fact, Windows 2000 was the last version in the NT family to not require a product activation. Computer name may be changed. Password is definitely optional. So I'm going to go ahead and change the computer name here. Let's see, Win to HV Hyper-V. I left out a 0, but that's okay. Again, you've got your date, time, and time zone. Note that the definitions for the time zone are likely outdated by the time you're watching this video. And networking. I do click Next there right at the start of this setup screen because the defaults are almost always okay. It's now in the second to last part of setup, copying files and configuring some services. I believe the CD has to remain in the computer for this portion. Again, I'll be experimenting with different virtual machines and storage drivers and maybe actual hardware, retro PCs and newer PCs as part of the Will It Run series to see if Windows 2000 will work on certain machines. So subscribe if you're interested. Again, leave comments on what sort of Windows XP, Windows 2000, Windows Vista even, Windows 7 things you want to see. Could do some Windows 98 too. Now, the last part of setup is what will take the longest. Here it's installing start menu items. I actually prefer the Windows 2000 setup here with its larger, more informative progress bars. XP has such tiny progress bars on its setup. Registering components. This one it used to take an incredibly long time on PCs with slow hard drives. It would crunch away for minutes and minutes on those hard drives. You would hear the churning. And, think way back like a laptop with a 4200 or slower RPM hard drive, very little RAM, slow CPU, really, really slow for this sort of thing. You can see how it's similar to and definitely influenced Windows XP's setup, which of course was the next version of Windows after Windows 2000. Yeah, the struggle is real on this registering components, even in a virtual machine. This is why I want to try those alternate storage drivers as well as put it on real hardware and see how fast it is. Saving settings like before, similar to XP. And one day I'd like to take some time when I'm caught up on a lot of projects and go through and examine the setup logs from XP in 2000. If your hard drive's slow, again, like on the previous section, it's going to churn and churn, like, as I said before, a laptop, 4200 RPM or less drive. You may have only had 256 megabytes of RAM or less, and there were no multi-core processors back then. I think single core, definitely around or under 1 gigahertz, and that was the latest thing at around the time 2000 came out. I may be off by a year or two. I'm not recalling my history exactly. Of course, there were server editions too that had support for more processors and RAM. 2000 also introduced Active Directory and group policy, which was absolutely huge in laying the foundation for some of the newer Windows versions features as far as business networking goes, domains and stuff. With Active Directory, I know NT supported domains, but Active Directory was a step up. So it's incredible to see it running on a Hyper-V machine on Windows 11 at all. And again, leave comments and likes. If there's a lot of interest in this, I'll make more Windows 2000 videos. So again, we're waiting on settings here. And yeah, there we go. Now, temporary files, that's instant. And we're done with that part. We click Finish. I really like that setup background. And we're rebooting now for the next part. It's rebooting again. You see the classic press any key, ... and then the classic early boot Windows 2000 progress bar. That used to crawl on really slow old PCs with little RAM and slow or fragmented hard drives. You'd see each little piece of that black and white bar load one by one. And there's the classic boot screen again. It's got a nice graphic and progress bar at the bottom. I really like Windows 2000's boot screen. It was full screen with the white and the gray and the blue and everything. The animation portion was so refined. Okay, so we're starting up this networking. Identification wizard, just skipping it. And default username and password. Everything looks really bad because it's 640 by 480, 16 color, no video drivers. There's the getting started. We'll look at that again. Start button throws up a prompt. So it's time to shut down and install some video drivers. It'll look much better. Strangely, the color is like Windows 98 with no video driver, the background color. Okay, shutting down. Yeah, definitely 16 color, 640 by 480. Let's get it up and running. I installed the 2008 R2 Hyper-V drivers, which did work, but still throw up some warnings. Now we're getting color, and there's that getting started screen again. We're still getting some driver install prompts, but overall video acceleration seems to work. We go into My Documents, Pictures. The one sample photo included with Windows 2000. Note that it opens with Internet Explorer because there's no picture viewer. Explorer is so quick. And note the storage space used is only about 2.5 gigs. The Windows folder is WinNT, not Windows. So that's an old school thing. A default background was this blue color. Backgrounds are generally low res, I believe only 640 by 480. Let's set it to stretch, apply, yes. There's the chateau or castle background. And here's leaves. Now that looks awful stretched. They were supposed to be tiled, not stretched. Like, you go down the list here. We pick that feather thing, and it's just unrecognizable. So it's definitely meant to be tiled. Flower photo looks decent. Again, notice the text has that blue box. I don't know if that can be disabled, but it was definitely an XP feature. There's a fisherman, classic low res. Really like that storm thing, kind of ominous, but looks cool. But that one reminds me of XP's Azul wallpaper. Oh man, that's like something from a Doom game. That's terrifying. Sample photo, tons of JPEG artifacts. Winter scene definitely reminds me of XP. Eclipse, you got that late 90s, early 2000s futuristic vibe, more low-res graphics. I really like the Windows 2000, and my theory was that Microsoft was jumping away from the old DOS-based 9xME Windows and into the NT future. Let's see, what now? I think we'll go into the system properties here in a second, but yeah, that's just a classic background there, matches the boot screen. Again, very refined like most parts of Windows 2000. Okay, and Task Manager is a little more simplified than XP properties. And let's move that always on top off. Yeah, you can see the CPU came through. I only gave it 512 megabytes of RAM. And let's see, going through advanced. Performance options, got a 2 gig page file, environmental variables. See how fast it is. It's crazy how light and fast 2000 is. Close the Task Manager, go into Properties, just boom, 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 recycle bin, boom, instant. We'll shut it down. And comment if you want more Windows 2000 content. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications.